Hello everyone, welcome to Chill Deal Trades, where I make it my job to analyze the market so that you know what's going on. Today we're going to be covering SRNE, which is Sorrento Therapeutics. I first heard of the stock back during, I would say, more of the craziness of COVID last summer, and it's been on a pretty volatile tear, mostly because of all the vaccine, COVID-19 related things that they're doing. But we're going to dive in because it did have a crazy price action today, and we're going to figure out where the resistance and support levels are for this. If you like the video, please sub, please like. We hit 100 subs. Thank you so much, everybody. We got here really quickly, and the squad is continuing to grow, so please hit that button. So as I mentioned, this stock has crazy volatility. I remember when I first heard about it, I think it was about like $5-6, and it went on this crazy tear to like $20 because of all this things about having a kit that they're going to be, a COVID kit, things like that. And today, I think part of the move was because of the COVID cases, kind of the new variants kind of showing up. They have their kit approved in Mexico for emergency use, and Mexico's kind of had a rise in cases. So I think some of it was there. The other factor I want to look at is the short interest. So when I was looking at FinViz, it does say that there's a 19% short float, which is that's a significant size. They do have a bit of shares. 255 million, so it does need quite a bit of volume to push the stock, but 20% float is pretty big. And then when I went to this other site that I use often to look at short float, not short float, but kind of short volume, we do see a really big jump today. So that's really interesting that I think as the stock moved up, or prior to the stock moving, some people had to cover. So I'm going to be curious, and this is kind of going to as we analyze the stock, potentially pushing up higher because there's still a lot of shorts at this price target, or at this current price. So as I mentioned, as we dive in, we see today, giant candle. What did we move? We moved 13% today, which is crazy. So I want to put a couple scenarios out for the next couple days just to start this out. So the first thing we want to look at is when this stock moves, it likes to move big. It can often happen that way. So as you can see, lots of really big candles, but green candles, but you also see a lot of big red candles. So it does like to move violently each direction. And so a couple things I'm going to be looking at is if there's a volume early in the day, as we can kind of zoom in, I'll zoom in some more. We had a really big candle. We have the biggest green candle basically since this push back here to about $18. So that's significant. And if we continue to see volume come in the first hour of tomorrow, I could definitely see $1 or so push would move to $1.30. I could definitely see somewhere between 50 cents to $1 tomorrow, and then maybe a come red candle pushing back the opposite way to red either that day or the following day. And there's a couple reasons I say that. One reason is RSI. So when we go down here at the bottom, RSI is starting to get into the overbought range. As you can kind of see, the RSI fluctuated right below this overbought, but then we pushed out above it today. So it's kind of going a little too parabolic in terms of some of the readings that we can see. And so this is going to be a hesitancy of how many more consistent days it can have with this really big, say 13% move. The second factor is we've kind of created this upwards channel in trading, which is really healthy for a stock. The only problem is that we peaked out of that channel today. So oftentimes I see sometimes we'll poke out a day and the next day we'll come back down. Or if we continue to see this go up, say 1 or 2 days higher, it's kind of going to destroy the pattern. And that's more bearish now. And you're probably going to want to, if you do short, probably short at that time because RSI is going to get just going to get way too hot. The stock's going to get way too hot, and we're going to probably see a significant pullback if we do see a couple more really big green days. So those are a couple things to keep an eye on over the next couple days. But to more positive, we are seeing a lot of positives more on the macro. So the first thing I want to mention is the moving averages. So we see that the moving averages are stacking properly, where we have the 200-day, the 100-day, and the 50-day. Whenever we see that the chart kind of readjust to having the moving averages in that order, typically shows a very positive trend in the chart. So until that kind of changes, that's a really big positive. The other positive is that we've been kind of above this 50 level on RSI. So as you can tell, when we're below it, we're in a bearish phase. When we're staying above it and bouncing above it, we're in a bullish phase for the stock. So that's another big positive for the long term. We'll have to see how the price action is over the next couple of days, but I did set a couple potential resistance coming up. So the first one that we're going to do is at about 11.45. So that is, yeah, just about 50 cents. So as I mentioned earlier, we could potentially see the candle come up as there was a big green day here. There could be like that last bit of traffic coming in the next day, and then potentially a reversal off of that trend hit, and maybe come back down, either testing the top of the channel, or I think another scenario is coming back down and trading back in. And honestly, trading back in for all the long-term holders watching this video, trading back or coming back into this trading range and moving in that is a very bullish sign for the stock. You want it to keep a very consistent range in the long term, because that's how you're going to make money, say over multiple months. If you're holding the short term, you want more volume to come in this to push up a couple more days and hit into those resistance points. So the first point, like I mentioned, 11.45, and then from there we kind of, I would say, have a range from 12.20 to 12.75, and that's where we have the gap. So we had a gap down in the past. So if we have enough volume come into the stock, say in the more short term, if it does go more parabolic, we're going to want for another, what is that? It's at 11. So another dollar, or that's more, where are we at today? Two. That's still to about $2. So that's still pretty, it would be a pretty significant move to get that high. But as I said before, we do see the stock print really big green candles, and we could see that if we have this volume continue to come in. But I would say over the long term, if we do go back into this channel, it would probably be a few weeks till we get to that, say, 12.75 range. But if we do get back in the channel, like I mentioned, that would be a more bullish indicator for this stock. From there, and I would say this is probably my top for the stock, I'd say in the intermediate term, if we do get enough volume, say over the next 2 months, is going to be that 12.75 or 13.85. And so one thing I want to do real quick is just zoom out. And as you can see, there's been a ton of volatility, and I've kind of circled areas of where I marked those resistance points. So obviously you see here, there's been like 2 candles here. And then right above that, right, I would say at the bottom of where it would be getting into the gap, we have a ton of resistance. So one, you have this whole area here. And then at the gap, yeah, that's at the top, the bottom of the gap, you have 1, 2, 3, and obviously at that gap you have over here. And if we zoom back even more, there's been so much volatility in this stock, and you can see so many, we're kind of coming to this range of a lot of past accumulation. So you can see here, there's a bunch of accumulation kind of in that, the resistance price range we're looking at. We can go back here and kind of see a similar thing. That's too far out. So if you're charting the stock, I would really suggest you zooming out to a few years, because you're going to be able to find some really important resistance levels back multiple years ago, as well as just over the past year and a half. I would say if we're looking at more of the support lines or dip buy areas, say this does kind of like poke out and come back down. We did break out of a pretty significant resistance point today at this big green candle, and so we need a confirmation that it wants to hold above it. You can see a lot of accumulation here, multiple candles trying to break out in the past, and so if this does come up and maybe come back for a test, I would say that's a scenario for the next couple days. But as I mentioned before, my best case scenario is something like this and kind of coming back into this trading range. And so if we eventually come back to this, you know, kind of RSI can reset and slow down a little bit and come back into the non-overbought territory, you're going to be looking for this kind of 1070. Let me get my little parts out. These things. There we go. It's going to be about 1072 is the area you're going to want to be looking for as the first area of support and potential dip buy. If it holds this channel and can dip to there and hit the bottom of this range, say over the next month, that's an option. I don't think that it's going to be going sideways for a month. I would say that's more unrealistic for the stock because of how volatile it is. So if it does break below that 1073, which it could, we've seen a lot of stocks lately kind of come back and test their lower high ranges. The next area, and this was probably going to be, you're going to have to start thinking about if you want to hold the stock at this point, is this $10 range. And the reason I say that is you can kind of chart a higher high and higher lows kind of scenario. And so say we kind of come back to here, say in the next 3 weeks we get back to this $10 range, this is going to be around the top of the higher highs that we don't want to break below. So you always want to look at a chart. If it starts this like upward pattern, you can't break below your last higher low, or it kind of dissolves that higher high and higher low pattern. So I would say that's where you have to start considering. Say you bought back here and you want to lock in some of your profits, maybe sell half of it if it breaks below this range. So it's at $10. That's when you have to start considering, because we also potentially could break below this trading range or this trading channel. We would also break above this trend line, which would be significant as well. Not as significant as the trading range, but still would have some impact. From there, you do kind of have a close support line at 945, which is at the bottom of the last higher low. So if we could also see kind of a double bottom put in there, double bottom more, I would say, in the near term as the last consolidation zone. So I would say that 10 to 945 is either going to be your dip buy or your stop loss zone. If you already own shares, and if you don't own shares, it might be an area to buy in potentially, and put a really close stop loss so you don't take too much risk on. Because like I said, it is a volatile stock, so when it breaks above resistance or below support, it can kind of move multiple percentages either direction. After that, we have a really big consolidation zone, and you can kind of see it because there's so much accumulation right there at this, where is this at this 890 to 833. You have a lot of accumulation in this zone. So that's going to be a range. If you're still holding at that point, you know, this is where the psychology of the trader starts kicking in, and you have to figure out how much downside you're potentially taking this position, or how much profit you want to lock in. Because if we get to that point, we have, you know, the higher highs and higher lows, that pattern no longer exists, and we're going to be kind of testing a significant area of support. So if it does come back, again, it could be some kind of like double bottom out in this direction, but those are things you want to keep an eye on, I would say, over the next month or so. These videos, I try to give you more of like a month-ish scenario for the stock, or 2 months. So those are things you want to look at. Around that 990 to 933, 890 to 833 range is also where the SMAs are. They're probably going to move up a little bit if we continue higher, but still they're in that range. So those are also really important markers that we need to stay above. I think those are all I would say the most relevant support and resistance areas. So I'm not going to jump into any more. You see, if we break below that range, the trend for the stock has most likely reversed, and we're probably there's a high probability we would retest this more recent low. But I'm curious, what do you think? Where do you think the stock is headed? Is this a long-term hold for you, or is it something short-term that you're trading? And again, if you like the content, please sub, please like, join the squad, and I appreciate you watching the video. The last thing I want to call out is just my Twitch stream. So me and my buddy, we live stream on Twitch every Saturday and Sunday. Saturday nights, we play video games and talk about the stock market news and what's going on and give our insights. And then Sunday nights is free for all Sundays, where anybody can come in to the stream, ask me any stock that they have an interest in, and I'll live chart it right on stream. And I actually have one more plug. We have a Discord community that we're building. There's about 30-ish people in there, and it's starting to get a little bit more popularity, and people are posting more, so we'd love for you to join that as well. But I'll end it there. Thanks for tuning in if you made it 13 minutes through. You guys are the real ones, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.